The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church, when you pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. What truth? That you are a slave, Neo. Like everyone else, you were born into bondage, born into a prison that you cannot smell or taste or touch. A prison for your mind.
People all over this planet for at least 6,000 years have been influenced by extraterrestrials, the Dracos and the reptilians.
When you have ancient cultures all over the world who are describing non-human entities in the unseen, many taking a reptilian form, and that has passed through the ages. And then you meet people in places like America, and they're telling you the same. You know, people who've been in mind control projects, people who've been in government projects, who've interacted with these entities in underground bases. And they're describing what the ancients did.
The reptilians arrived here and began to take over. Became involved in religion and in the politics.
A race of creatures which look like reptiles who have ruled the world.
And you have Draco reptilian guys running your governments of every country on your planet.
Every government. There you go.
Wow.
World governments are controlled by a reptilian, non-human race. I've been saying that since the 90s.
I am totally committed to the fact that there are reptile aliens here on the earth. Of that, there is no doubt in my mind. Many years ago, I have had many different stories told to me by very powerful people, airline pilots, bankers, real estate executives, people who are well-grounded, highly intelligent, well-respected people over the years have told me of their personal one-on-one encounters with reptile aliens. I have to assume there must be something to it.
Have I come across a stream of people from different walks of life all over the world who have told me the same thing, that they have seen, to their astonishment and amazement, they've seen key people in positions of power just demanifest from being a human physical form and become before their eyes a reptilian figure.
The truth is so much more bizarre than the lie that it hides itself.
The truth doesn't change because you don't want to hear it. The idea that we are alone is absolutely beyond ludicrous. And the fact that you can be seen as crazy for believing that shows how inverted the system is.
It's probably time to stop calling people who believe in UFOs crackpots after the recent revelation that there's actually a Pentagon task force looking into them.
It's always asked, where's the evidence or where's the beef on the UFO issue? In fact, we have so much evidence that Dr. J. Allen Hynek, who was in charge of Project Blue Book for the Air Force, stated that it's an embarrassment of riches. We have so much.
1947 is what the public has been told. Something crashed in the backyard in New Mexico, a place called Roswell, New Mexico. The military's known about the alien question for the better part of 70 years.
We get 100 reports a week on average of people from all over the United States that see these things regularly. And if you start checking, they're out there and they're low, and people are seeing them all the time.
I was involved in situations where we actually did recoveries of crashed saucers, for lack of a better term, debris thereof. There were bodies that were involved with some of these crashes, also some were alive.
This reality, this infinity, is teeming with different expressions of life. And some of it's interacting with us.
And in the higher echelons of NASA, it was considered common knowledge that extraterrestrials had visited Earth, that they had landed here, that they had crashed their ships, and the ships had been back-engineered into useful technology.
These unacknowledged special access projects are taking in at least $40 to $80 billion per year. And they are sitting on technologies that can change the world forever. And the big picture is that we haven't needed fossil fuels since about 100 years ago. Around October 1954, we attained gravity control. The secret behind these UFO propulsion systems and energy systems would give us an entirely new planet, beautiful. But there are stakeholders who are very, very powerful who aren't happy about that.
It would be no different than the Star Trek era. Free energy, all kinds of medical technologies that will heal just about anything you can think of, clean up the environment. I mean, replicators, there would be no starvation. Literally, the deserts could be turned green with desalination of water. And we have that technology. It's just not being shared.
And so much of this science fiction that puts this stuff in our face as fiction ain't fiction at all. They're getting it from fact.
We literally have all the tools in front of us right now for a Star Trek era. The only reason why we don't have it is that our planet, unfortunately, is being run by a sociopathic cabal. Ultimately, this cabal is being run by these Draco-reptilian extraterrestrials, which most people think of as demons or the devil. Even the idea, the collective mythological idea of the devil is somehow based on truth, because it's a reptilian type of being with vertical slit pupils, scary sharp teeth, and a scaly type of appearance to its skin.
Because there's lots of planets that are capable of maintaining humans. This happens to be, as they say, the prison planet. There's only one race, lots of different colors. We all come from a different star system.
Have you been told there's bases on Mars and Moon?
Yeah.
Yeah?
I also been told that any night, if you could have a clear sky, look at the stars that are strobing red, blue, and green. Those are all spacecraft.
Right.
We're the focal point. Like you're taking your cameras to take pictures of me.
Yeah.
The ETs are doing the same thing for planet Earth.
There is indeed a galactic federation. You may think that's a joke, you may think that's a little funny thing from the Star Trek series and all that. There is indeed a galactic federation, and the headquarters is not even in our galaxy.
Aliens exist, and President Trump knows about it. That's according to Israel's former space security chief. The aliens have been waiting until today for humanity to develop and reach a stage where we will understand in general what space and spaceships are.
And the survival of this species on this tiny zoological garden is important to them.
People on this planet, they don't know there's extraterrestrials.
Yeah.
There are Federation facilities out in the galaxy where other extraterrestrials get together, and there's many different missions for many different types of programs.
When I got out in 1989, we had cataloged 57 different species. You have individuals that look very much like you and myself that could walk among us and you wouldn't even notice the difference. The entities that we did catalog were in fact humanoid. Now this created a situation where the scientific community was trying to figure out why that would be the case.
We have been severely misled. We hear words all the time like aliens and creatures. and we take it for granted that we're dealing with something fundamentally inhuman. Nothing could be further than the truth. What we're actually dealing with is that the universe itself is sentient, the galaxy is programmed to create biological life, and that biological life will be hominid in our galaxy. It will have a head, it will have eyes, nose, mouth. There's very few that don't. It will have 2 arms, 2 legs, opposable thumbs, all that kind of stuff. I do have one insider who has personally handled over 2,000 different types of extraterrestrial bodies. And his job was basically just to autopsy them and try to identify organ systems. So I have a lot of different descriptions of what different types of ETs look like, and I can tell you that probably most of the beings that are out there are human-like or actually human-looking.
The latest number, just recently, we doubled the number again. We now have 200 trillion galaxies out there. And to say that we're the only intelligent people in this universe is naive.
People laugh at the fact that this world could be manipulated by a non-human force. Well, hold on, let's just take a perspective here. According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum is 0.005% of what exists in the universe. Some say it's a bit more, but not much. Visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see, is a fraction, a tiny fraction, of the 0.005%. So humans, compared with what exists even in this universe, are basically blind. We don't live in a world, we live in a band of frequency. Look at the diversity of form in the human form, never mind the animal world and the insect world, that's operating within that tiny band of frequency. What the heck exists in terms of diversity of form beyond that, which is in the almost entirety of existence that we can't see?
The Draco, according to the glass pad, smart glass pad, had been here at least 375,000 years. And they considered Earth theirs.
They've been here, some of them have been here a long, long time. They have lifespans that are thousands of years.
And they take human shape. They are reptilians. And these reptilians live hundreds of years. And so they have to have taken more than one human body to live in.
They're incredibly smart. They're incredibly psychic. They're incredible builders. And they've chosen the opposite polarity. Their whole thing is control, domination. They've manipulated a lot of civilizations throughout our galaxy. It's a group that is on its way here and now from Alpha Draconis. They're the real culprits behind this whole deal. Then there's Orion, the Orion group. Then you've got the Greys.
What we call humans once operated and existed in a much higher dimension of reality, a much higher dimension of consciousness. When along came a force which took a reptilian form, although other forms too.
Out of the sky, one day came terrible objects, bringing great noise, and out of those huge objects came them. They told our people that they were gods, and that they were going to give us human beings great gifts on one condition. We had to worship them and accept them as our creators.
And it sought to hijack what is now human consciousness. And as consciousness became entrapped, it fell down the frequencies from higher expanded awareness into a much lower state of awareness, that they would lose the memory of where they came from and what ultimately they are. And part of that was to put in to the brain something known to this day as the reptilian brain.
Fundamental part of the human body, the human hologram, is reptilian genetics, and the oldest part of the human brain is called the R complex by scientists, short for reptilian brain. From there we get primitive emotional responses, cold-blooded behavior, and territoriality, as they call it. This is mine. A desire to control, an obsession with hierarchical structures of power, aggression, might is right, winner takes all, come from the reptilian brain. We get the survival responses, and we're being locked into that all the time as we are manipulated to a sense of needing to survive. And around the world, again, it's like, have you seen that new car? No, and you see them everywhere. Again, once this reptilian thing came into my life, I started to realize just how much reptilian imagery there is everywhere, all over the world. You find around the world this theme of part serpent, part human, all over the place. The duality of them. You find the serpent eating a human, or eating a human baby, all over the place. Then you've got the fairy stories of the prince turning into a frog, the frog turning into a prince, and dragons and serpents. And when you look at the Hollywood and televisual portrayals around the world of non-human entities in reptilian form, they are incredibly the same or very, very similar to what people have described.
I may wear this skin, but I never forget what we are beneath.
You don't understand. Your world's gonna end.
What the hell are you?
America, take a good look at your beloved candidates. They're nothing but hideous space reptiles.
They're running the whole show. They own everything, the whole goddamn planet. They can do whatever they want.
They Live. Roddy Piper was the actor who starred in They Live. And in this interview, he said, in effect, that They Live was not a film. It was like a documentary. It was like telling the story as it really is. I, in many ways, used that movie as a theme template for explaining what I'm saying is going on. And then actually, Roddy Piper was saying, well, that is what's going on. So basically, it's the fact that a non-human race was controlling human society by hiding behind human form. And therefore, people are being infiltrated without realizing that some force that's not from them is doing the infiltrating.
Understand, they are safe as long as they are not discovered. That is their primary method of survival. Keep us asleep, keep us selfish, keep us sedated.
So, They Live, and there are so many movies coming out now that are symbolizing the society that the global cabal want to introduce. It's kind of preparing people to accept it, getting people familiar with it, so we won't resist it as much as we would otherwise. But They Live, The Matrix 2, but They Live is operating at another level. It's symbolizing the very force that is actually behind all this, and why human society is the nonsense, the inversion, the grotesque inversion of how human society could be.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal. 3, 2, 1. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff. 32 minutes past the hour.
When we got to the moon, we found out a lot of surprises, okay? The Draco reptilians were already there.
The Asilomar gathering in 1995, we reached out to Neil Armstrong because I knew from contacts and family that when we landed on the moon, we weren't alone.
We knew because we had probes when we went, non-manned probes that we sent around the moon. So we knew there were facilities on the backside. We knew a whole lot that people didn't talk about.
On the moon, the rim at the top of the crater was, quote, crowded with UFOs, the craft that were up there, multiple of them, and that these were filmed. And that there are, I know people personally who've seen that film. And we did go to the moon, but some of the footage, it doesn't make sense because the flag is moving. The truth is we went, but during the lunar orbiter, going back before the Apollo mission, we actually were circling the Earth taking the first early digital photographs. And as you know from the testimony of Disclosure Project witness Carl Wolf, there were structures on the moon that were artificial. Some were newer and some were very ancient. But the people running that project, the deep black people in those projects, knew that it was likely we were going to encounter something not of this world or a UFO when we landed. Therefore, they had filmed some footage that they could splice in if something started happening. So during the live transmission, if something started happening, there's a delay that went through this National Security Agency filter, and they could immediately, instantly put in. And that's why there's a couple frames where the American flag is moving.
Had confirmation of loss of signal from the Apollo 11. The Apollo 11
we were in a position where
the far side of the moon.
This moon is not a moon.
Neil, you are dark on the rock. Mission is a go. You have 21 minutes.
Okay? It's not your moon in the first place. Actually, this is not your planet. This is their laboratory. Our moon is a vehicle. It's a command center for this region of the galaxy. Essentially, we have nice guys in there and even some bad people in the same vehicle. And they discuss wars and disagreements and this sort of thing.
Our moon is an artificial satellite. In fact, it is a spacecraft. Much of the debris on the surface was put there and was built purposely to make it look like what it isn't. Okay, it is hollow, it is metal underneath it, and it has the ability to leave our orbit under its own power.
Honest scientists will tell you they have no bloody clue where the moon come from, and it shouldn't, by physics, be there.
The more anyone studies the moon, the more it's clear that it's a hollow object of mystery, big mystery. It's an ancient, advanced spy broadcasting craft, a satellite that was strategically placed to face Earth and never rotate. And it beams these electromagnetic frequencies onto Earth, and it's a monitoring device or satellite which controls Earth's matrix grid system that we live in, this grid. And we know that it does affect our moods, it does affect our emotions, and this regulation, control, and suppression of our own life, of our own spiritual progress here on Earth. It is Moon's goal to completely shut us down and not allow us to expand our awareness and our consciousness beyond mind and consciousness, to shut off our top chakras, third eye, crown chakra, pineal gland, our right side of our brain, so that we're always stuck in this crappy, low vibrational, third dimensional sense reality.
So these vehicles come up and park. Some of the guys come out and they stand there underneath on the edge of the crater. His statement, Armstrong, "Sir, you've got to see these. They're massive. They're threatening. They're threatening us. There were hundreds of these 9-foot reptilian guys standing with their legs.
Hundreds.
Yeah, they were all the way across the underneath their vehicles. And they don't just control this planet. We're just one of their planets. They didn't put the flag up first. They put up a Freemason flag.
With these reptilians watching?
Yeah. And so now then they put the American flag up. Okay? And then they start walking around taking their pictures.
Neil Armstrong said, look, you know, if I were to go forward and talk about what actually happened, I've been told, Neil Armstrong said this to us, that my wife, my children, and my grandchildren would all be killed, that they would take us out somehow, some terrible accident. He says, I'm not going to talk about it.
But they're not allowed to say it. They're just not allowed to say it. Nor, who's going to want to jeopardize going to jail, being ridiculed?
Just let me say this.
They're laughing at you. They're not laughing with you.
Fine.
Being fired, giving up everything they have to come up and say, well, I'm an astronomer, and I was looking at Mars, and I saw alien craft, and I know there's a base there, and it's being conquered by reptilian aliens. Who's going to have the guts to come up and say it?
They're ugly-looking lizard, alligator type people. But then they have the ability to shift and look like a human. All of them do. Okay? Your president, yes.
George Bush, Sr., yes.
Yeah. Sure. And Bill Clinton, and this guy you got got rid of. Yeah. They all were.
And you're saying Trump isn't one?
No, he's not. Okay.
That's a relief.
And and he knows more about this subject than people realize.
Oh,
okay.
Excellent.
But the bottom line is, when you look at the whole picture and you go up the ladder, okay, we are not the enemy. The enemy isn't human at all. But it's pushing all our buttons so that we're so busy looking at each other and so neurotic about each other that we're not looking at the real reality here, the real cause.
For 30 years, I've been warning people in my books and in every other way I can that this world is controlled by a cult. It's a cult that has no borders. It operates in all the, at least major countries, and in fact, all the countries in the end, and particularly in those countries that dictate the direction of the world.
They're called the Illuminati. And the Illuminati are actually run by these 13 bloodlines, which are all of the royal families in Europe and in England.
To be told that by a confidant of Diana that her nickname for the Windsors was the lizards or the reptiles, and she used to say, in all seriousness, they're not human. And she knew far more about this background by the time she died than people in the public domain would ever realize.
A reptilian extraterrestrial race has been controlling planet Earth for thousands of years to this day, and putting its genetic compatible bloodlines into the positions of power as presidents, prime ministers, banking leaders, business leaders, etc. And this explains so many things. Where we get the divine right of kings from, the divine right to rule because of the bloodline, the genetics. Why these ruling families of the aristocracy and the royal families have always incessantly interbred with each other, just as the Eastern establishment families of the United States do, that produce so many presidents and banking leaders and administrators of government in the United States.
Like all other kingships, America's power elite hinges on family blood. Starting from Edward II and III of England, 28 out of our 42 presidents were connected by blood. Most of the 14 not connected by blood were connected by fraternal orders used by the bloodlines, with only a few exceptions, notably in disruption, the Kennedys, seeking to disrupt this dynasty of power in America.
Presidents, like in every other country, they're selected by blood and by Illuminati and networks.
The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence.
They came from off of this planet and interbred with humans. They are reptilian. They have their chosen bloodlines, and they continue to try and keep their genetics pure and interbreed with these chosen bloodlines. These beings are part human and they are part reptilian. And they continue to run the planet. They are our world leaders, and nobody at this current time who is a government leader is there running the countries unless they were put there by them or they are one of them. I have seen at rituals, I have seen George Bush, Madeleine Albright, I have seen Henry Kissinger, Ronald Reagan, seen his wife, Nancy Reagan. I have seen shapeshift into reptilians, Jay Rockefeller. I have seen Hillary Clinton before I knew she was Hillary Clinton. Gerald Ford, I have seen shapeshift. Dr. Joseph Mengele, who took me around to these rituals a lot of the time, was also a shapeshifter. Guy de Rothschild, I've seen the Queen Mother do that, and Prince Philip and Charles, Princess Margaret there. I have seen Tony Blair there, and they shapeshift. These people seem to all be connected to the Illuminati.
There are aliens who look like us, but they have been manipulating us and lying to us and tricking us, and they're very, very dark and evil. And they're manipulating the whole human race. And they have been from day one.
Then why should they buy one of ours? Why not? Because we can't buy one of theirs. Open up the market. Very, very well.
Yes, we have capitalism and we embrace it.
We're being ruled by entities from somewhere else. So we're not at war with government. We're at war with these Elohim, these ancient gods who've been manipulating the human race. I've had enough of them.
If you go back and you look at religious beliefs, etc., of the ancients and the accounts of the ancients, these entities, which go under different names, some people call them the serpent race, some people call them demonic. In the Islamic culture, they call them jinns, all different names, but the same entities. The bloodlines are interbreeding incessantly and have been right back to ancient Babylon and Sumer and Egypt, etc., and beyond. Because they are holding a certain genetic code which allows these entities to possess these particular bloodline families. We see people under different names called Rockefeller and Rothschild and Bush and Obama and all the rest of it. And because we can only decode their visible light level, we see the human level.
2 years ago when I first heard this story from my friend Dave, this story freaks him out so much that he doesn't want his name used, and so I don't use his name. I got permission to tell the story. I don't use his name. So he says, I was invited to the Bohemian Grove, and I said, really?
Leaders from around the world, prime ministers, chancellors, presidents, governors, again, the heads of industry, banking, academia, the media, Hollywood, only a select few, a little over 2,000 people, traveled there to engage in bizarre, ancient Canaanite, Luciferian, Babylon mystery religion ceremonies.
Individuals like Ronald Reagan, Gerald Ford, Carter, all dressed in black robes.
The people who lead this country meet in private because they don't live by the same morals and ethics you do. They have a whole different standard of behavior than you do. They meet for 2 weeks every year with some of the most important movie stars, national leaders from around the world, and they say it's the only place that enemies, so-called enemies on both sides of a war, can meet quietly behind the scenes and be friends to decide what war they're going to have next time and who's going to be the enemy and who will be the good guy.
From what my friend tells me is that the way they do it is they don't hire outside contractors. What they do is they find people that are skilled and they bring them into the club and then they use their services inside the club. He was aware that these people were millionaires or billionaires or something. The way he described it to me at the time, he wasn't awake at all. He really didn't understand any of this stuff. So they eat dinner and they chat it up and then they retire to their bungalows and they go to bed. And so he wakes up the next morning. He wakes up early in the morning and he grabs his shave kit to go and use the facilities. And so he peeks in and it's that Rockefeller that he was sitting next to at dinner. And the dude looks up at him, and before he could get, hey, sorry for interrupting, this dude shapeshifts right in front of him. And I said, tell me exactly what this thing was, right? And he says it was larger than human, and it was all white, and it had teeth, and it had a tail. And he says, I froze. I told him a couple times, Dave, you got to, tell people about this. I mean, and he's like, no, I'm not telling anyone about this. I've got a family. And I mean, he left the country. That's how much it scared him. He just left the friggin' country.
The key to keeping people in perceptual servitude is to suppress the nature of reality itself.
They've modified the information. All history documentation in this country and on every country on the planet have been given lies about astronomy, lies about mathematics, lies about technical capabilities, lies about the universe. You name it, okay? Everything have been lies.
I see vast numbers of people who are perceptually programmed. When you come into the world, you take the world to be as it is when you arrive. You come into a crazy place, but, well, this is how it is, so you don't see it as crazy. When you look at a human life, you come out of the womb, and within 4 years, you've only just got here. You're sitting at a desk with an authority figure representing the state's version of everything in front of you, telling you when you have to be there, when you can leave, when you can speak, when you can go to the toilet, when you can eat, what is, what isn't, what's possible, what's not possible, and the nature of everything. And this goes on all the way through your formative years, into higher education, if that's where you go. And it's a download of normal. It's a narrow band of sense of the possible, which is basically being repeated. One of the greatest forms of mind control, repetition, repetition, repetition.
The Matrix is a system, Neo. That system is our enemy. But when you're inside, you look around, what do you see? Businessmen, teachers, lawyers, carpenters, the very minds of the people we are trying to save. But until we do, these people are still a part of that system, and that makes them our enemy. You have to understand, most of these people are not ready to be unplugged. And many of them are so inert, so hopelessly dependent on the system, that they will fight to protect it.
Once they've got your perceptions, they've got you.
Nothing in this world operates the way you think it does. Banks do not loan money. Governments are not empowered to protect you. Police department is not there to serve you. Institutions of higher learning, colleges and educational institutes are not there to educate you. The entire superstructure of civilization in the Western world is a combination of brilliantly put together and well-planned schemes to direct the minds of the people in such a way as to serve their masters.
They built the system. They know everything there is to know about the system and how to manipulate it. Indeed, it was created and structured to make manipulation easy.
There are two kinds of law on the earth that rule the whole world, but most people don't know that. All over the world, all governments are ruled by what is called civil law, which is called, in all countries, the law of the land. But there is a second law which also operates all over the earth identical. It's called UCC, Uniform Commercial Code. It's the Bible of business on the earth. When a ship pulls into port, it pulls in and stops, and it's called in its berth. The ship is now in its berth. Because it is on the law of the high seas, or commercial maritime, UCC commercial law rules the seas. The first thing the captain must do is to present a certificate of manifest to the port authorities. The port authorities need to know how much is on this ship that you're bringing into our country and our economy. Consequently, when you are born, you come out of your mother's water. Therefore, you must have a birth certificate, a certificate of manifest, because you are a corporation-owned item. You are a human resource.
They control the money system. They control the State Department. They control the presidency.
That fiat funding money that we use isn't money at all. It's debt in the privately owned Federal Reserve.
But it's neither federal nor reserve.
It's private.
They're poisoning the people. They're poisoning you. Everything that you eat, that you breathe, and that you drink is tainted, toxic. It's part of the program.
They do not want you to think too much. That is why our country and our world has become so proliferated with entertainments, mass media, game shows, television shows, amusement parks, drugs, alcohol, and every kind of entertainment to keep the human mind entertained so that you don't get in the way of important people by doing too much thinking.
Where does human behavior come from? It comes from human perception. Where does perception come from? It comes from information received.
For years now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh and stuff like that, make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on.
In 1986, someone bought an IBM copier at a second-hand sale. And when they got it home, they found inside a very thick document, which obviously shouldn't have been there, called Silent Weapons for a Quiet War. And this described a policy of mass public mind control that has been orchestrated on the people of the world, particularly the Western world, since the 1950s. Experience has proven that the simplest method of securing a silent weapon and gaining control of the public is to keep the public undisciplined and ignorant of basic systems principles on the one hand, while keeping them confused, disorganized, and distracted with matters of no real importance on the other hand. Disengaging their minds, sabotaging their mental activities, providing a low-quality program of education in mathematics, logic, systems design and economics, and discouraging technical creativity. Giving them what they desire, in excess, junk food for thought, and depriving them of what they really need. Unrelenting emotional affrontations and attacks, brackets mental and emotional rape, by way of a constant barrage of sex, violence and wars in the media, especially the TV and the newspapers. Rewriting history and law and subjecting public opinion to the deviant creation, which I take to mean don't tell them who they really are. Thus being able to shift their thinking from personal needs to highly fabricated outside priorities. Media. Keep the adult public attention diverted away from real social issues and captivated by matters of no real importance. There is profit in confusion. The more confusion, the more profit. Therefore, the best approach is to create problems and then offer solutions. Work. Keep the public busy, 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 with no time to think, back on the farm with the other animals.
You had better wake up and understand that there are people who are guiding your life and you don't even know it.
What is the Matrix? Control. Built to keep us under control in order to change a human being into this.
No. We are an energy source to them. These entities feed off human low vibrational energy. A perceptual state is a frequency. If I'm in a state of depression, then I'm in a frequency. Depression is a frequency. Joy is a frequency in our reality. And if you're going to absorb energy as a source of energetic sustenance, then that energy has to be within the frequency band you operate on. And therefore, if they're going to use humans as an energetic source, human emotion has to be in a low vibrational state. So they've set up a human society to generate maximum fear, low vibrational state, anxiety, depression, conflict, and all these low vibrational emotional states.
They know the great weaknesses of our minds, just as they know the great strengths of our minds. They operate in what I call the gray area of human existence, that side of our lives which we don't want to acknowledge the existence of. They make us to fight each other, and when the whole land is drowning in death and fear and terror, when hundreds and hundreds of people are angry and afraid, the cheetah will get fed.
A spiritual kind of, when you're scared, like Monsters Inc., the monsters are sneaking in and scaring the crap out of the kids and getting power. Well, that is disclosure. I mean, that's how these beings work. They'll park over battles, cloak, and just sit there, and all the misery and death is putting out an energy that they feed on. And they have this symbiotic relationship with this AI god, their AI god that they worship. And the loosh that they get, they're feeding it up to this AI god. They eat humans, they eat other animals, they get their sustenance from eating like we do, the reptilians. But they pull in this loosh, and this loosh gives them a high.
Are you saying carnivores, they eat humans?
Yes. And they won't eat a dead human. It has to be alive at the time of the killing. Their preference is children.
Do you know that reptilians and Draco, the blood sacrifices, the whole Luciferian thing, the kids being killed and eaten, that humans have been eaten and taken off planet, et cetera, and used for slaves in other colonies, etc.
I hate to say that, but that's far worse than what you've just said.
It's far worse.
Yes, far worse.
Far worse,
And that the whole blood situation is it's unbelievable, and
right.
I don't know how we say that to the public.
Hundreds of people are reported missing in national parks and forests, many of them children. But a small percentage of the cases have search and rescue crews continuing to scratch their heads.
They're responsible for 31,712 children disappearing in the last 25 years from the United States. These children were food. And I'm supposed to just shut up and not say anything about it because people don't want to hear it? That's tough. That's tough.
100,000 children totally unaccountable through FBI archives, cannot be traced anywhere.
You know, Westchester County, in the last 5 years, 3,000 children in Westchester County, New York, have vanished without a trace. Where are they going? Why are we allowing this to happen?
Nobody's ever seen them. I think they're hauled underneath in some of these bases and they are summarily done away with, and they are literally eaten.
There are tunneling systems everywhere that are being helped by the Greys, and also there are groups within the higher echelon that are actually helping them acquire this.
Right now, there are 131 active deep underground military bases in the United States. There's 1,477 of them worldwide. The public basically has been totally lied to. We're considered stupid or even moronic in some cases. They use the glandular secretions of animals and human beings as a mixture of the vitamins for their food. They get high off of our adrenal gland substances called adrenochrome. It's something like cocaine to them.
What is this shit? That stuff makes pure mescaline seem like ginger beer, man. Adrenochrome.
Adrenochrome?
Or the second time you told me about the alien contact was through the deep underground mountain bases. They discover that there's a cavern already there. So they go down and explore what's going on there. And they find lizard aliens, Dracos is what he would call them. They want our blood, and they eat our body parts, usually children. You know, there's 1 million children that disappear every year in the United States. When we think about being invaded by aliens, forget it. They're already here, and they have been here. They've been a part of our life since the beginning.
The children they have the most energy, the purest energy, they're the highest form of sacrifice. They are used as actual blood sacrifices.
5.5 million children every year are trafficked around the world. 5.5 million, most of whom don't live past age 7 or 8, which means they have to replenish that supply chain.
During these ritualistic practices that the elite participate in, one of the compounds that is released in the children's body during torture, during trauma, is a compound called adrenochrome. It's released out of the adrenal gland during highly traumatized incidents, and this adrenochrome acts as essentially a drug.
The song Shake It Off was about how I shed my skin every 1,000 years. And the song Bad Blood was about how I drink blood out of my Grammys.
A toast to blood! Save some blood for Paul Rudd.
Was everyone dressed the same in like robes or?
Yeah. And the queen was as well. I saw her up close. It's so fresh that I'm just embarrassed to share it. It feels like I did see her and her husband. Did seem like her husband changed. Eventually shaping into like a reptilian. And like scratching the kids and sucking blood and Yeah, it doesn't really feel. They just seem more like they were into blood more than they were sexual stuff.
I endured numerous occult rituals. These guys who are manipulating my mind and programming me for mind control purposes claimed, and these criminals in control of our country as well, claimed to be gods, demons, and aliens.
So let me tell you about mass rituals that go on in there, behind those walls, at the hands of our royalty. Many, many children are brought in for these mass rituals. You need to wake up to the fact that everything you think you know to be true is a lie. Everything you think to be true is a lie. I was tortured beyond imagining, so I would never speak of what I saw. The Queen and Prince Philip are not human. They are reptilians. They shapeshift from human form into lizard form. I saw this with my own eyes many, many times.
Incredibly, a body found on the Queen's estate in Sandringham. The cause of death not yet known.
It's happened about a mile away from the main gates to the house, so it is in the Queen's backyard, you could say.
During these rituals, because of, again, reptilians needing their blood, and they need the blood to try and maintain their human form, it helps them to live in this world.
800,000 kids reported missing every year. We teach our kids about stranger danger, but the statistics behind the abductions are rather shocking.
I was in a meeting on the subject with some other people, and this one young lady said, I've got one. And you got what? I've got one. Really? I have. I got a picture of it. UFO? Yeah, a real picture of it. Look what's coming out of the back of it in color. 5 separate gases coming out of this reptilian tanker, dropping 5 gases at 300 feet. Everybody's minds are controlled to not see it, just like a stealth system. So the commander of this squadron made sure that that stealth was turned on. He forgot to turn on the stealth that prevents the camera from photographing it. They're flying all over us. There's hundreds of them. There's thousands of them every single day on your planet. They're dropping the gas. And you don't function normally, or how you should function. And so, again, we are being mind controlled, not for the last couple of weeks, but for thousands of years.
They're trying to stop us from advancing technologically, and they're trying to keep us under control on this somewhat slave planet that they are wardens of. They also monitor each city, county, whatever, and if a certain amount of people are starting to wake up, they will go and drop mind control gas on them. For the most part, they use a technology that that puts out a field that controls our minds. They don't want you to see certain things. You just don't see them. And I mean, you could have your dog could be next to you going, what the heck is that? And you don't see it. It's, it's set to the waves of how our mind works. All of us, you, me, people at home, we're all mind controlled to a certain degree.
There's so much more going on here, and we are just one small part of this whole picture that's going on, and we have to wake up, period.
So there are changes going on in the earth. It seems they're not able to hold their shape like they once were able to, and people see them shapeshift more and more. I believe there's a time coming that because of what I've been told, when they are not going to bother having to hold that human shape as they had to before.
You okay? You need a minute? Cool. Okay. Listen up, people. I know a thing or two about extinction.
This whole thing is going towards when they are going to establish themselves openly as a new world order. And it's headed toward that.
On the backside of the dollar bill, you'll find the Illuminati pyramid. Annuit Septus, Novus Ordo Seclorum, the New World Order.
We have before us the opportunity to forge for ourselves and for future generations a new world order, a world where the rule of law, not the law of the jungle, governs the conduct of nations. When we are successful, and we will be, we have a real chance at this new world order, an order in which a credible United Nations can use its peacekeeping role to fulfill the promise and vision of the UN's founders.
What the New World Order means is the creation of one world government to which all nation states would be subordinate, one world central bank, one world currency that wouldn't be physical money, it would be credit, one world army, and a microchipped population.
The alien agenda is the complete takeover of this planet, the killing off of 5, 6 to 7/8 of the world's population by the year 2029. U.S. military has known about this for 45 years. They've told no one.
Which Jimmy Carter put in writing. Every congressman got a copy of it. As Kissinger says, the number one problem we have on planet Earth right now is too many people.
Do you know that they're building concentration camps to put millions of people in? Do you know that the United Nations has got 300,000 troops in the United States right now that they're going to use to confiscate weapons?
The idea is to get humans controlled by artificial intelligence so that they completely control our perceptual state.
The big picture, they want it all. They want to enslave your child, your wife, your mother. There isn't anything that you ever had. There isn't anything that you own. There isn't any right that you possess that they're not planning on taking away. They want it all. You've got a choice. You can join in this fight, or you can die as a savior.
This archontic reptilian force, it cannot create the Orwellian society. It has to manipulate us to do it.
Which is why there's been so much focus on brainwashing, on trying to make us victims or believe that we're victims. Because the minute we wake up and we take a step back, detached, and see our situation for what it really is, they've lost control. It ends there. The minute we awake. That's how powerful we are. That's how powerful our minds are. And this is why channeled information, so many different races and beings are trying to light the fire underneath us, because they can't directly come in and interfere unless a percentage of us ask for permission, because then it's a violation of free will. You cannot violate free will. That's the law. So they're trying to help us awaken and at the same time try to make us think it's our idea.
The public needs to know about this. The country needs to know about it. The planet needs to know about what has taken place. And we've been lied to. I say this over and over. We've all been lied to for a minimum of 6,000 years. Every country, every European country, every Asian country.
Look at what's happening around us. The indications are everywhere, everywhere. The truth is now an obscure thing. You know, the lie is the norm. There's something wrong here. What's wrong with this picture?
Just look at us. Everything is backwards. Everything is upside down. Doctors destroy health. Lawyers destroy justice. Universities destroy knowledge. Governments destroy freedom. The major media destroy information. And religions destroy spirituality. Slavery was never abolished. It was only extended to include everyone. Go to work, get married, have children, act normal, walk on the pavement, watch TV, obey the law. Say for your old age, then repeat after me, I am free. And we keep having to say we're free, and in America they keep having to tell the people they're free every 5 minutes because they might otherwise suss that they're not.
You know, even the monetary system, it's just a belief system. We could change that tomorrow if we wanted to. I mean, we're so intelligent, we could create something different. You know, but we're believing, oh, we gotta have this money. Do you know that we're the only race in our galaxy where people starve, that people are homeless? I mean, it's such bull. It doesn't have to be like this. Even the Draconian races, they take care of their own. They don't sell out each other like we do here. They don't throw somebody in the street because they don't have a paper, which is really what it is. You know, the only value on it is what we believe it is. They just don't have that. They don't feed grain to cattle that feed 20% of the population and let the other 25% that need the grain starve. It's unconscionable. They would never even think to do that. But we do it here. For bucks, for money, for power. It's like so bizarre. You know, I can't. It's like when I see the Andromedans, or when I've been exposed to the Pleiadians, when I see how they live and they teach and they live with each other and they respect each other, and I come here, it's like, you know, it reminds me of that sentence that Abraham Lincoln, that quote that Abraham Lincoln once said. You know, if you are above the earth looking down, you could be an atheist, but when I'm on the earth looking up and seeing the heavens, I know there's a God.
What does the emperor do when the people become restive, and when the people are asking questions, and when the people don't like the policies of the emperor? He sends them to the circus. He creates a circus. He builds a giant coliseum. And he begins to throw the Christians to the lions. He has great chariot races and football games and basketball games, all to keep the idiots preoccupied with things that don't mean anything in the scheme of the entire world, so that they don't have the time to learn what the truth is, so they don't ever get smart enough to learn how they're being manipulated, so they don't ever question the ignorant.
But it's going to have to be humanity that's going to rise up and take the stand. You're just going to have to turn off your televisions. They're going to have to get in their car, and they're going to have to do something. You know, this apathy's got to end. Otherwise, the way we live is going to end.
William Casey, CIA Director, will know when our disinformation program is complete, when everything that Americans believe is false. Their goal is that everything we believe is a lie, and they're bloody close.
If you identify as your name, your life story, your race, your religion, you are identifying with a set of labels. And those set of labels are not you. They are what you are experiencing. I am a point of attention within an infinite stream of consciousness. And you are a point of attention in that same consciousness that observes reality from a different point of view. We are all points of attention in that same one consciousness. I am eternal, infinite awareness. And when I leave the body, and we go on experiencing and exploring forever, this is a brief experience for a point of eternal consciousness. When you observe the world from that perspective, it's not so frightening.
Not just the human body that you see in the mirror. You're an immortal being. You lived forever. God knows how many eons of time we've been at this. And you're going to continue to live forever. That you are an infinite soul, a spark of divinity. And saying that to people apparently triggers something in them, where they really begin to look into themselves.
We have our conscious self, we have our subconscious self and our higher self, and then the higher self goes higher and higher until self drops off the equation, and you just have the higher until it returns back to source. And source is where we all came from and fragmented from and are all still connected to in some way. That's how we are all still one.
I look at the world, I look at the suffering, I look at the people with illnesses they don't need to have, and people with emotional situations they don't need to have. I see people fighting over race and fighting over gender and fighting over culture and country. And we're all one. It's so sad. But this is what drives me on. Because in the end, it's information that will change this. Because it's suppression of information that's caused it.
There is no race any better than us. Just because they're different, just because they're more evolved, doesn't mean that they're better. We are equal. We're just not maybe as aware as they are. But that doesn't mean that any race is any better or any less. In fact, we're all equal. If you want to worship somebody, worship the God within you. That's it. Worship no one else.
So if you want the truth, go to God. Go to your gurus. Go to yourselves. Because that's the only place you're ever going to find any real truth.
We need to have our shackles that we've been put around us let go of so that we can really evolve. And we have awesome potential. We really do. We have been, as a race, we have been through so much here. We have so much experiences, and because of our emotions, which is really our strength, which really sets us apart from all the other races out there, even the other human races, we have tremendous capabilities to create things, but we need to get clear of what's real and what isn't. We also need to get really clear about being able to create our own future, to create our own reality, where our kids will have an opportunity to be whatever they want, to live in an environment that's clean, that's free, where they can have water to drink, where they can go out and eat fruit, they can play in the dirt without getting radioactively toxic. But it's going to have to be humanity that's going to rise up and take the stand. The real strength in us, in our own permanent evolvement as a race, will come from us standing up, taking a stand and saying, you know what? No way.
What is there to fear? We are all that is, has been, and ever can be. There is no death, there's just transition from one point of attention to another. What is there to fear? Nothing. And if we don't, the game's over. Because fear is what controls us.